And we're going to start with Mayor Sam Liccardo. Then we're going to ask Council Member Sergio Jimenez to share his thoughts. And then we're going to go to Mr. Diep to share his thoughts, and specifically the relevance for our audiences. This is where we need you to ask the questions. So we'll start with Mayor Liccardo, and can I just say you're inaugurating the first ever outdoor briefing I think we've ever done. So we're really pleased to be in this beautiful spot and to have the mayor speak with us about Measure C.
Thank you, Cindy.
Is it easier for you to use this?
Yeah, whatever works. I'm happy to give that a shot. So good afternoon. My name is Sam Liccardo. It's my great honor to stand here with community leaders from throughout San Jose and throughout the Valley. And we're standing together against Measure B and for Measure C. As we say, Measure B is for billionaires, Measure C is for the community. And I want to introduce a few of the folks I'm with here today, starting with my colleagues. Councilmember Sergio Jimenez. Thank you, Councilmember Jimenez. Councilmember Lan Diep. Fortunately, they are both more fluent in Spanish and Vietnamese, respectively, than I am. So I suspect they're going to be better able to field some of your questions in those languages. We're joined with community leaders from many important organizations, including Kiyomi Yamamoto and Brian Schmidt from the Greenbelt Alliance. Thank you for joining us. We have Megan Medeiros, of course, from the Committee for Green Foothills, Mackenzie Mossing, who has been doing a lot of heavy lifting for us from the Audubon Society. Thank you, Mackenzie. We have Andrea McKenzie in her role as the General Manager of the Santa Clara County Open Space Authority, and Mark Landgraf, who is here, of course, on the board, but individually. Thank you, Mark, for joining us as well. And I hope I haven't missed anybody, but Helen Chapman. Thank you, Helen, for all of your work, as well also helping to spearhead our efforts with the No on B, Yes on C campaign. So why are we united, Republicans and Democrats? Keep in mind, this is the only measure in my memory in which both the Republican Party and Democratic Party have stood together in opposition on Measure B. We stand together with environmentalists, all the organizations mentioned here, Sierra Club, and many others. We stand together with affordable housing advocates, groups like SV at Home. We stand together with advocates for the elderly and seniors, the AARP. We stand here with veterans, with organizations that represent the entire spectrum of our great city. And we stand together because we stand together to protect our environment and the destruction of our hillsides, which is what Measure B threatens, and the destruction of other environmentally sensitive areas like Coyote Valley, the Almaden Reserve, and many other parts of our city, where for decades, our community has stood together and said, this is not where we want sprawling development. So we stand together for our environment. We also stand together to ensure that our city can provide services to our neighborhoods. And so we stand together to protect our neighborhoods. And we know that sprawling development like this is what costs our city, our police department, our fire department, all of the various departments of our city to be stretched, providing services in far-flung parts of our region, which we know dilutes and undermines our ability to provide these basic services, ranging from emergency medical response to police to those residents who most critically need them. We also stand together to protect our commutes. We know that this kind of development is exactly what has created the gridlock on our freeways, and we know that these nearly 1,000 homes will only exacerbate the gridlock that our residents experience every day, for example, on 101, which is already overwhelmed with all the traffic from Evergreen to and from. But most importantly, I think what we stand together to protect is we stand to protect the truth, because the truth has been too much a victim in this campaign. From the developers who have proposed Measure B, who purport to claim that this is a development that will serve veterans, despite the fact that these nearly 1,000 homes will be built with no guarantee of a single home being made available to a single veteran. The fact that these developers can claim that they're building affordable housing for seniors, when we know that they're watering down the affordability requirements of the city that every other developer must comply with. It is these developers who are claiming that somehow or another this is good for the environment, when every environmental organization I've ever heard of, all the ones standing here in addition to Save the Bay, Sierra Club, and everyone else you can think of, is standing up against this kind of sprawling development. We are standing together to protect the truth, and we believe the voters deserve the truth. And that's why we're here together. And so I want to thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your efforts to communicate the truth to our very diverse city so that all of our voters, regardless of language, can ensure they know the impacts of this kind of dangerous, disingenuous effort by billionaire developers to manipulate our residents. Thank you all. Now, it's my great pleasure at this time to introduce my colleague, Council Member Sergio Jimenez. We'll all be happy to answer questions after each of the council members have spoken. Councilmember Jimenez.
Thank you so much. So this is the only thing I'm going to be saying in English. So I'm going to be giving my comments in Spanish because I think it's very important to be able to articulate the reasons Measure B is a bad thing and the reasons Measure C is a good thing. And so I'm going to start my comments in Spanish. My name is Sergio Jimenez. I'm a council member for District 2 here in the city of San Jose, which is South San Jose, which encompasses some of the most vibrant and valuable open spaces in the city. So this is very important to me. So buenas tardes, yo me llamo Sergio Jiménez, soy el representante del Distrito 2, viene siendo el sur de San José. Y déjeme ser bien claro que para mí quiero que los residentes voten no en la medida B y sí en la medida C. La medida B fue pagada por desarrolladores ricos que viven fuera de San José para evitar reglas que protegen el medio ambiente y audiencias públicas. Estos ricos no quieren pagar las tarifas que soportan la construcción de viviendas de bajo costo. Sabemos que viviendas de bajo costo son muy importantes debido al crisis de vivienda actual. Todos los desarrolladores deben pagar estas tarifas y no podemos permitir excepciones. Los reclamos de que estas casas serán para ancianos o para veteranos es falso. Estas son casas de lujo para millonarios sin ningún compromiso a construir casas para veteranos. La medida B propone transformar 200 acres de terreno abierto sin ninguna revisión o aporte del público. También pone en peligro espacios abiertos como las tierras agriculturas del Valle del Coyote y hábitos silvestres donde la naturaleza prospera y donde se encuentran animales y plantas protegidas. Medida B empeora el desarrollo expansivo que ha llenado nuestras autopistas con tráfico. También permite que los ricos eviten pagar las tarifas que mantienen nuestras carreteras y cual se requieren de cualquier otro desarrollador. El alcalde Sam Liccardo, la Liga de Mujeres Votantes, todo el Consejo Municipal de la Ciudad de San José, el Sierra Club, Save the Bay, AARP, que representa a muchos ancianos, y el Partido Demócrata y también el Partido Republicano, y tantos otros se oponen a la medida B, porque reconocen que la medida B es una estafa financiada por los millonarios, enriqueciéndose a costo de nuestro futuro. El contraste con la medida C, nos aseguramos que los residentes pueden opinar sobre lo que se construye en nuestra comunidad. La medida C limita el desarrollo expansivo y garantiza que toda nuestra construcción cumple con las reglas ambientales, utilizando diseños que producen y conservan energía y utilizan agua reciclada. limita también el desarrollo expansivo que ha causado la congestión en nuestras autopistas y asegura que los desarrolladores paguen para mejorar nuestras carreteras. La medida C también requiere 50% de nuevos proyectos que sean unidades de bajo costo para personas de bajos ingresos. Para mí, le pido a nuestra gente en la ciudad de San José que por favor voten no en la medida B y que apoyen sí la medida C. Gracias. Y ahora voy a llamar a mi colega.
Okay.
You want me to say all that in English?
For those of us who know who are
Please.
Spanish limited,
Yes.
can you give us your elevator pitch? And particularly, how will this impact Latinos and other communities represented by our region?
I appreciate that. So the question is, how does this Measure B impact the Latinos, right? Or people that are typically underrepresented in our society. You know, many years ago, I stood with some of the same folks to pass Measure Q, which was going to provide critical funding to provide a lot of the urban open spaces for a lot of the Latino community. Having grown up in an apartment complex in East San Jose, an affordable housing complex, as I've often stated, my open space was my patio. We never got to visit the parks. We never got to visit the open space and enjoy the scenery, recreate out there, see the wonderful animals, and really enjoy and take part in what makes up a large portion of our city. The reality is Measure B passes, it's going to allow these rich developers to circumvent the planning process. And my fear, and one of the main reasons that I'm here, is that I believe it might open up the floodgates to building out in our open spaces and our hillsides in Coyote Valley, the very area that I represent. I can tell you the residents in District 2, along with many of the Latino residents around the city, that is really the only open space that we have to recreate, to enjoy with our families. And so if we make it that much easier for these rich developers to take away these vital open spaces and start building housing that was intended for jobs, for example, it's really going to put us at a deficit. Additionally, a lot of the folks that are from high-need areas in our city, in our valley, depend upon a lot of the services that we provide through the general fund, whether it be the libraries, whether it be police, whether it be fire. And without the appropriate revenue that we derive from a lot of the businesses, the folks that come to do business here in the city of San Jose, which these lands are designated for, we're not going to be able to have the revenue to provide these critical services to a lot of the residents throughout the city. And so I think you can, whether you spin it, you know, the environmentalist spin, or you spin it as or suggest that it impacts the most needy in our city and the people that have the most desire to have access to services and open space, I think it has broad-ranging negative impacts. So I would just urge residents to vote no on Measure B and yes on Measure C.
That was great. A long elevator ride. That was great. We're now having Council Member Diep. Helen, did you? I think after there'll be plenty of time for one-on-one interviews in language, at least in Vietnamese and Spanish and English.
Sure.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Council Member Lan Diep. I represent North San Jose, which is the economic engine of the city. I'm here to join Mayor Liccardo, Council Member Jimenez, and the rest of my colleagues on the council, as well as all the environmental organizations behind me, in opposing Measure B and urging you to vote yes on C. We are a city of rules. We are a city that operates through planning processes and public processes. The passage of Measure B would subvert all this, would try to build housing in a place that the city does not intend for there to be housing, and would not only do that, but exempt these developments from the fees that every other development would have to pay, therefore shifting the burden of mitigating the cost of traffic, of environmental impacts onto the rest of taxpayers and all the other developers, exempting that particular project. You've heard this already. I'd like to say some of this in Vietnamese, if I may. Kính thưa quý vị, chúng tôi là nghị viên Diệp Thái Lân, đến hôm nay cùng với thị trưởng Sam Liccardo, nghị viên Sergio Jimenez cùng tất cả những đồng nghiệp của chúng tôi để yêu cầu quý vị hãy chống lại cái dự luật B năm nay và ủng hộ dự luật C. Kính thưa quý vị, thành phố San Jose khi xây cất là có nguyên tắc cho cả một cái hoàn cảnh thành phố. Chúng ta xem nơi nào là nên có công việc công ăn việc làm, nơi nào là cái nơi để xây những cái nhà cho chúng ta ở. Vì cái nơi nhà và cái nơi có chỗ ở đó nó ảnh hưởng về cái giao thông của chúng ta. Ở trong cái dự luật B này, những người này muốn thông qua xây cất một số gần 900, gần 1.000 cái căn nhà trong cái khu vực Evergreen trên một cái mảnh đất mà thành phố cảm thấy là không nên xây những căn nhà này. Không chỉ thế mà khi xây những căn nhà này, những người ủng hộ dự luật B muốn exempt là muốn miễn cho họ những cái số tiền mà thường phải đóng của một cái người xây cất cho thành phố, cái tiền để làm cho cái giao thông nó chạy nhanh hơn, cái tiền để bảo vệ cái môi sinh, và bắt những cái dân đóng thuế phải trả những cái đó dùng những cái người muốn xây những cái căn nhà này. Cái dự luật B này nó không chỉ ảnh hưởng vào cái nơi vùng Evergreen, nhưng mà nó sẽ ảnh hưởng đến tất cả những cái mảnh đất của thành phố mà cái dự luật B không định nghĩa là những cái mảnh đất ít dùng, underutilized lands, là những đất là ít ai dùng đến. Và nếu dự luật B được thông qua đó, là những cái mảnh đất này sẽ được mở ra để ai muốn xây căn nhà thì cứ xây, bất kể cái tác hại trên cái thành phố. Chúng ta muốn xây một cái thành phố có nguyên tắc và được sự đồng ý của hội đồng thành phố, nhưng mà cái dự luật B này sẽ phá tất cả những nguyên tắc đó, cho nên chúng ta mới ra với cái dự luật C để bắt buộc là tất cả những ai muốn xây cất là phải thông qua và hợp lệ với những cái điều mà thành phố San Jose đã thông qua trên một cái nguyên tắc và trên một cái viễn cảnh chung cho thành phố. Cái dự luật D hứa hẹn là sẽ xây những cái nhà rẻ tiền, những cái nhà vừa túi tiền cho những người cao niên, nhưng mà họ nói như vậy nhưng theo luật pháp là họ không làm như vậy, và khi họ xây được cái đó không có gì dưới luật pháp bảo vệ được cho họ là sẽ bảo đảm có những cái căn nhà vừa giá tiền cho những cao niên hoặc những người cựu quân nhân cả. Cho nên họ chỉ hứa nhưng họ sẽ không làm được, và cái dự luật này nó sẽ không tốt cho thành phố San Jose. Mong quý vị cùng chúng tôi chống lại dự luật B, ủng hộ dự luật C. Cảm ơn.
Thank you. We're now going to ask our media for questions, and I wonder if Mr. Diep and Mr. Jimenez and Mayor Liccardo could join us at the podium. Let's start with Jean.
Thank you very much. My question is that if the developers have already purchased the land, I think it will be awfully difficult to actually stop them from building. Now, my question is that even if we are able to stop them with the Measure C for now, they might come back next year, the year after that, and year after year until they get to build. Now, my question is that if they must build on this land that we're talking about, what kind of a restriction or compromise are we going, as the city or the people, will be able to impose on the developers?
Gene, thank you for the question. Gene, thank you for the question. Nice to see you again. First, the developers don't own the land. They have an option on the land. So their option will expire in time, and the landowner will have a choice of deciding to do something different. If nothing develops on the land, then it remains beautiful green hillside. I can tell you we've had conversations with a major university about a campus on that site if ultimately the landowner wants to develop it. A university campus could provide unbelievable opportunities to many of our young, bright students who are challenged every day to get into programs that are overly impacted at San Jose State University and UC Berkeley and everywhere else in our Bay Area. And we'd like to broaden opportunities for so many of our students, particularly in East San Jose, where we think a university could have extraordinary impact. And so that's just one example. It seems to me that nothing could develop there, and I think the residents in Evergreen would be perfectly happy with that. And certainly our green hillsides would continue to be beautiful and green. But if they're going to develop, they ought to develop in a way that's consistent with the general plan that this city and its community has developed. And the community supported this general plan. More than 5,000 residents provided input back in 2010 and 2011 when we were creating this general plan. It was unanimously approved by a community task force, unanimously approved by the council, And we simply should not allow a billionaire developer to make up their own rules for themselves when everyone else plays by the rules that were created by the entire community. Finally, I just say the developer cannot come back if Measure C passes. If Measure C passes, it says very clearly to every developer building anywhere in the outer reaches of our city that you must follow the plan the community has created.
Next question.
Sure. And what language would you like the answer in? English? Okay. I'll give it a shot in English, and then we can pass
Over to the mayor.
Yeah, and then we can pass along if you want a translation. There's no question that we're in a housing crisis, and we need housing for all levels of income. But we're not going to solve this housing crisis with a gated community of luxury homes. We have requirements in this city, as many cities do throughout the Bay Area, for affordability. That is, if a developer builds market rate housing in our community, then a specific percentage, maybe 15% or 20%, depending on the circumstance, has to be built to be affordable with rent restrictions. You do not see those restrictions in place in this project. In fact, they've watered down those requirements. And so certainly we know we're going to build more housing. I put together a plan to build 25,000 units of housing in the next half decade. But we need to build in a way that's compatible with our community's vision. And that means building high density housing here in the downtown where people can get to transit, can walk to work, not luxury housing out in the hillsides. That's not going to solve the housing crisis for the thousands of families who are struggling every day in San Jose neighborhoods.
Anything you want to add,
Yeah,
Mr. Jimenez?
Well, I think the mayor said it very succinctly. This can easily develop into a very wonky discussion, and he's the guy to talk to if that's what you want. But I can tell you this is I recognize the housing crisis. I think I voted for every housing project that has come before us on the city council. I recognize we need more housing. Our residents do. But as the mayor suggested, the thought that a gated community in which only folks that earn just over $100,000, $200,000 are going to be able to afford, that is not going to put much of a dent in our housing crisis. We need affordability, and so anything that pushes it in that direction, I'm all for. But I don't think this is the solution.
And Councilman, the housing issue is a big issue.
Sure. So wait, do we still have any Vietnamese media here? No, I think we had. Oh, no. All right. So basically, with the issue of housing, of course we need more housing. I think that no one's going to argue that point. I think what we do need, though, is thoughtful planning. And the city has a general plan. We have a vision for the city up to 2040. And Measure B, if it passes, would subvert that vision and would circumvent the planning process that multiple community members have joined together with the city to pass. And so we want to preserve that. And that's what Measure C is about.
Yeah, open space. Sure.
Or just open space issue. They're saying 30 acres is less open space. What about their commitment to leave 30 acres open?
Yeah. Their commitment is, like so many of the false promises of these developers, not much of a commitment. We have park dedication requirements that every developer must comply with. To promise what you would already be required to do is hardly much of a promise. These are developers that are looking to exploit a loophole, essentially, to get a project passed around the long-standing rules that our community has created in the form of a general plan, and then make phony promises that are in fact nothing more than statements that they'll comply with requirements that they'd have to comply with anyway. What we need is open space in East San Jose where children can actually play. We're not going to see that in a gated community up in the foothills. We want open space in East San Jose and Central San Jose, where so many of our families struggle just to find an open soccer field.
We've got time for a couple more questions. Vandana.
I know you mentioned having the need for open spaces. So do I understand correctly that currently it's owned by a, by a private owner and it is not open to the public, correct?
You mean in Coyote Valley and
No.
or Greenville?
Yeah, let me explain. The land is currently owned by a billionaire by the name of Carl Berg. And it is privately owned property, but he must comply with public processes to decide how it should be developed. In this case, he and others have decided to go around those public processes because they think they've got enough money to bamboozle voters into getting what they want. The issue before us is not simply what happens to that parcel of property, but what can happen to any parcel in the outlying areas of our city, whether it be in Coyote Valley, the Almaden Reserve, the Evergreen Foothills, or any other place that we regard as being environmentally sensitive. If this Measure B passes, it provides, if Measure B passes, it provides every developer that wants to destroy our environment in these outlying areas of our city a free pass to do so. And it does so through a complex planning methodology called an overlay, a senior housing overlay that essentially enables developers to override the will of the community to protect our open spaces and our foothills, to be able to build this kind of residential sprawl. And so this measure is much more than about one project. It's about this entire city and our vision, our community's vision for protecting Coyote Valley, for protecting our foothills. The last thing I'd say is this. Yes, this is privately owned, but it's undeveloped. And our residents appreciate undeveloped land in our hillsides as if it were a public open space. It's beautiful. It adds to the aesthetic beauty of our city and enables us all to breathe a little easier. That's not a bad thing. We should appreciate that. And if it remained undeveloped hillside for the rest of my term and the rest of my lifetime, San Jose will be a better place.
Time for two more questions. Yes.
I believe the billionaire developers, they have money, so they must be advertising and spending money too. So,
What's a very good question?
so how are you planning to handle that? And if you're going to have more community meetings also, because I don't think people know about it. But so
You don't know enough.
yeah.
So how do you,
Yeah. We know these developers have already spent more than $3 million in this measure. They're going to outspend us 10 to 1, 20 to 1, who knows, 30 to 1. We know they'll outspend us. I get their mail just about every day in my house. We get flooded with their mail, their junk mail. Our secret weapon is you. Very simply, we believe that the media that has an interest in conveying the truth to our residents will be able to enable our residents to be able to vote according to their best interests and according to the best interests of our city. And so that's why we're reaching out today, and that's why we'll continue to reach out in every way we can. I'm certainly raising money, but we don't have the money that those billionaires have. So we're just going to have to do it with a grassroots campaign. We've got a lot of very fierce volunteers who are right now in our campaign office working very hard, and they're out there knocking on doors. They're on the phones. We've called more than 10,000 residents already. We're going to keep knocking on thousands of doors until everybody knows the truth about the lies that these developers are propagating. En español, es obvio que las personas que están apoyando esta medida tienen mucho dinero y van a ganar mucho para asegurar que su mensaje es oído por todo el pueblo de San José. Pero tenemos la determinación de muchos voluntarios y los líderes de muchos grupos comunitarios y de líderes de esta ciudad para comunicar la verdad a todos los miembros de nuestra comunidad que esta medida B es lleno de mentiras. You want to say that better, Sergio? I think you probably can.
You said that perfect.
All right.
But one last question, somebody who hasn't asked a question. Okay, done.
Yeah.
Is there effort to actually close that loophole? Why should that happen again?
Yeah. Here's the loophole. The loophole is in a state law called CEQA. The state law protects the environment in various ways. And unfortunately, state law allows developers like this to get around those environmental protections by putting measures on the ballot. And if you spend enough money and you're able to persuade people, then you can get around those environmental requirements. I happen to think those environmental requirements are pretty important in circumstances like these. And so we don't have control over state law, but we can certainly fight here at home to make sure that people know the truth. And that's what we're doing today.
That prompts me to ask the last question. We read in the literature that Measure B sort of came like a storm from nowhere. People weren't expecting it. It had no public hearings.
Oh, Measure
It
C.
had paid signatories. Could you explain a little about the extent to which
C, yeah. I think you're referring to
the process by which Measure B
C. I think you're referring
Measure B got on the ballot, prompting
Oh.
Measure C.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so
The secrecy factor.
yeah, so yeah, we've seen plenty of the junk mail suggesting somehow or another that Measure C was got on the ballot through some unknown dark means. So let's explain what's going on. First, Measure B got on the ballot because some billionaires paid a lot of signature gatherers a lot of money to go gather signatures at shopping malls to get the measure on the ballot without ever bothering to inform people very clearly about what this measure was about that they were signing up for. In response, the city council assembled a measure, Measure C. Now, we did that not specifically just for Measure B, but we did it because we know that this formula that these developers have tried with Measure B is a formula they've tried before. They were successful in the city of Tracy just a couple years ago. And so we know these developers are going to be at it again. So we put on a measure, Measure C, that would essentially protect the general plan that was created with the input of more than 5,000 of our community members, unanimously approved by the council 5 years ago, and since unanimously upheld by this council just a year and a half ago. That general plan is what is protected in Measure C. That measure was subjected to 2 public hearings before this city council, in which all members of the community could be invited to speak. In fact, the opponents of Measure C, the billionaires, hired some lawyers. The lawyers came to the microphone and threatened us with all kinds of legal action. They said they'd stop Measure C from ever getting the voters. These are the folks who are concerned about secrecy, right? They had their lawyers threaten to keep Measure C from the voters. They then went to the courts and tried to get the courts to prevent the voters from being able to vote on Measure C. And the court said, no, the voters deserve a right to be able to vote on this measure to protect a general plan that our community created. So the secrecy is entirely contrived. And in fact, if anything, it's enforced by the opponents of Measure C and the billionaire proponents of Measure B. Thank you.